I'm here with video number 2 of my Lotharek HxC Floppy emulator installation. This video will cover the replacement of the existing Ensoniq Mirage floppy drive and replacing it with the Lotharek HxC Revision F floppy drive emulator. Okay, the Ensoniq Mirage has 2mm metric Allen head screws, so you need an Allen head wrench of some sort. This is one that I have from local United States manufacturer. Here it is. This one is the 2mm Allen head. I have taken the time to verify that these screws will indeed come out and I'm not going to strip or damage the unit in any way. You can hear that nice snap of 25-year-old rust. Actually, no, this is 1987 sampler. There's a lot of threads. These are fine pitch threads. Screws too. Just take your time, be careful, do not strip them. There's no point in hurrying up. If it doesn't come out, there's always a better way. Please ask a mechanic friend of some sort. I've done quite a few of these types of operations, so I know what I'm feeling for, so that I do not destroy my vintage sampler. And all the screws have been removed. I'm going to put these in a nice safe place. You do not need to lose them because the odds of finding a 1986 Allen head 2mm screw are 0. Okay, now we're about to see the inside of the cover for the very first time in, like I said, 31 years. Ready? Ta-da! There it is. It looks very, very simple inside. It's very simple inside. There's hardly any components at all. The big transformer says it was manufactured in 1987. So I'm guessing it was a 1987 unit. I bought it secondhand in 1990 or late 89. The back label says Mirage Digital Multi-Sampler, DMS-8, 120 volts AC, 60 hertz, a half an amp, 60 watts. Serial number, it's in the 14,000s, -R for rack. And the date of manufacture was July 9th, 1987. The floppy drive is a Panasonic JU364-14 if you need a replacement. Serial number is 7007410. So it looks like it's got a 12 volt and a 5 volt drive on it. My guess is the 12 volts is for the motor. The motor is definitely not working. The drive light on the front does come on and off. Just from looking at it, I can tell that the floppy drive cable is inverted to the Lotharek, and so is the power. So be careful of that when you're moving things in and out. The mounting appears to be from the bottom into some inset captured nuts. So you got to take it out by unscrewing from the bottom. There's nothing on the front. The drive unit itself is taller than the Lotharek, so there will be. There's the factory cable connection. It's screwed in from the bottom. So let's first. Now the connectors are old, so be very careful. It's better not to touch them if you don't have to. Don't bend the wires, don't kink them or crease them. Treat them very gently, and they will continue to function. Try not to yank too hard. Ribbon cables are sensitive. There we go. Don't damage the components inside the motherboard. Be careful, like I said. Looking at the bottom of the unit, you can see that it was horribly scratched at some point in its life, coming in and out of a rack. So you will also need a Phillips head screwdriver. I happen to have one, and there it is. It's coming out very easy. Like I said, it's been 30-something years. It's definitely no Loctite, just a lock washer. Looks like a star-style lock washer. gently release the floppy drive and flip it over. There we go. Like I said before, the floppy drive is damaged anyway, so there's no point in worrying too much about it. Maybe it'll knock it loose. This is the Ensoniq Mirage floppy drive relieved from its case after 30. You gotta figure that out. It's 1987. This is 2017, so yes, 30 years. Let me do the math quickly on my fingers. So every 10 years would be 87, so 97 is 10 years. And 2007 is 20 years, and 2017 is 30 years. So yes, this is a 30-year-old floppy drive relieved from its case after a very long time. So now we have to remove these screws in order to mount them onto the Lotharek. So let's make that nice and pretty in the camera. There we are. And again, these are Phillips head with lock washers. And again, coming out very easy. There's no tarnish, rust, or discoloration on any of this metal. There are some shavings nicely coming out of that one. So you got to be careful about that. Don't want shavings on your motherboard, especially not at 5 volts or 12 volts. It will burn and cause a fire. There's the back side of the floppy drive. Like I said, the floppy drive was lighting up. It does spin, it's not seized. It's kind of cool. There is a motor here, but I can't see the belt or the drive mechanism. I may attempt at some point in its life to remove this cover and see if it's just the belt is broken. Because the drive is valuable, especially in this good a condition. They sell used on eBay for $50 with copies of the Ensoniq Mirage floppies, which I can now make. So I went into my storage area and found some computer accessory power duster, and I'm going to use it to spray the inside of the Mirage case. It is not coming off like it's loose, so it's been cooked on there forever. In my studio, it's always been in a rack. I do not want to clean it. There's no reason to do any kind of bath on the motherboard. Okay, I've seen in a few other videos, just for reference, that these 8 chips, these chips by themselves, are the audio processors, and they get summed up before they come out the audio output port right there. So there are some mods that allow you to put cleaner output amplifiers on the Mirage unit so it's not so noisy. But there's no reason to have a clean Mirage as far as I'm concerned. Part of its charm is it sounds like what it sounds like. If you want a clean Mirage, buy an Akai S950. The floppy drive mounting base. So there it is. It's going to go into these holes on the bottom of the Lotharek. They are there, conveniently floppy sized. Let's flip it all over and see, does it line up? And sure enough, looks like it does. All the holes line up to the exact proper dimension on the Lotharek unit, so it's floppy drive standard, which is very nice. Now, as it turns out, we know that this Lotharek is a little low compared to the floppy height. So there's the Lotharek, there's the floppy. It's almost a 1/4 inch difference in their heights, which means that when we install this unit, there'll be a 1/4 inch gap above the top of it, and we don't want that. Since the captured nuts for the holder are on the holder, and the mounting point of the floppy is not captured of any kind. We need to raise the Lotharek up. The plan will be to put the gap at the bottom of the Lotharek, so it will be lifted some 1/4 inch amount. Now, in an ideal world, we would take this with the caliper and measure it, see the difference, and then identify that difference and fill in the top properly. Seems like you could, if you were inclined, bend that up, which I'm not going to do. You could, if you were inclined, put something to fill in that hole. There's a black floppy and a black floppy. So it's about 2 black floppies high, but it is not exactly a black floppy wide. Part of my OCD is that it's got to look perfect. But for today, it's going to have a gap. So be aware that when you buy one of these units, it does not exactly fit. Now, they gave us a sticker. Lotharek gave us a sticker in this. The sticker is kind of ugly. Did I find the sticker? Ooh, one of my screws jumped out. That's a bad thing. The whole idea of putting them in there was to keep them safe. Okay. So Lotharek gave us a sticker for this unit. Let's just see about this. There it is. Now you see the peel off portion. There's a little white backing. They peeled the back of the sticker off. It is almost very nicely the correct size. If they were wise, or someone wanted some kind of secondary market business activity, you could make this thick sticker stuff easily tall enough to fit that opening, so that it fits. This device is excellent. It costs a lot of money. I understand why they made it fit the modern form factor, but they know that they're selling it to the vintage forms, which there are no standards for this back in the day. It was like the first kind of units that came out. If they made this sticker available to cover this form factor, that would be fantastic. I'm going to put the Lotharek on upside down. I'm going to line up the holes. There's the holes. Check the video. Where we find our floppy mounting screws. These are the silver ones. These are not. So let's do a test to see do these screws fit. I'm sure they do. They kind of do. So now we'll see, does the whole thing fit? I'm not doing anything silly. It looks like it's symmetrical and square. So it's not like the feet are offset. It's a very nice design. As far as assembly and things go, anybody who builds stuff, symmetry and squareness is useful. Sameness side to side and left to right is useful. Check the depth of the screw to see, can we lift it 1/4 inch? Probably not 1/4 inch. I might have to get some more longer screws. These were not on tight, so there's no point in snugging them down beyond the star touching the plate. There we are. There's the second. Now, since these screws didn't come with a Lotharek, it would be wise to check the inside to make sure we're not touching anything in there. And it looks like we are nowhere near touching the back of the board. So if you look inside, the bottom of the case and the board are very far separated, but you would not want to put in a screw that was too long. That would crack the motherboard of your new floppy emulator. There we are. They're all snug. They are not tight. They're only as tight as they need to be. Goes through the front. Fits easily. Sits on the holes. They fit easily. There we go. So now we have the power on the wrong side. We have the floppy drive number 1. Yes, I'll make sure I'm correct. Floppy drive key is on the wrong side here. So this needs to be flipped. I don't know if you can see it. We definitely need to cut this tie wrap over here and figure out the floppy cable so we don't break it. I don't want to replace this cable. And then the power goes on. Power is keyed, it's also inverted. Found some cutters. I'm going to need something to cut this tie wrap here, which we will do in a moment. Now let's flip over the unit and install the new Lotharek floppy drive emulator upside down. There we go. The unit is upside down. We'll put this in like this. We will. That's weird. Alright. I'm not going to wedge nothing. See, now the holes are nicely lined up in the unit. Try this one here. And there it is. Just that easy. So now we'll just do this side over here because it's easy for me to hold it up. Now we'll loosen them just slightly so that we can align the other side. There we go. Now I've got my hand under the whole unit, not holding just the edge, but holding the whole thing, so that these holes are lined up with the screws. There it is, seated but not tight. We'll do the same over here. Now these screws are for the power supply. There's no reason to take it out during this operation. Put these in. These were not in tight. They were in just a gentle, snug fit. That's it. And there it goes. Now, let's look at the front and see how it aligns. And look what we got. We have a large gap at what will be the top. We also have a little left to right asymmetry and a small gap there as well. So let's flip this over. And there it is. We will look at it right side up. There you go. Give that a nice camera view. You can see the good solid edge of that gap. It doesn't actually fit. It's not aligned left to right. It is wider on this side than on the other. It's definitely a 1/4 inch on the top that could go away. It would be very nice if Lotharek made a giant sticker that we could cut the edges with scissors, and the sticker was all black. It didn't have their logo weirdly placed on the front. That floppy logo, well, it's cool on the circuit board underneath. It looks very busy because it's much too close to the edge of this window and much too far away from that. So the distance between this light window and that slot window, and the logo and this light and the logo and that light is all different. And if I'm complaining about the spacing around the edge of the metal, this would drive me crazy if I had to look at it every day. I would go insane. And since this is supposed to be a happy project, we're not going to do that. But if the sticker were black, entirely black, and it aligned here, and it were larger than what was normal, I would definitely have spent €2 extra to have that, so that I could have my own sticker to cover up the big empty hole. And no one would have been the wiser. Definitely need some wire cutters to cut the tie wrap inside on the middle tie wrap on the floppy power connector. It should be replaced with a new tie wrap to hold everything in place. There's not enough distance to get this over here without causing this to crease. And like I said, when you move stuff, stuff breaks. So be very careful. Do not use giant connector cutters. Use tiny little ones as often as possible. The appropriate tool. There's no substitute for the right tool for the job. This is keyed, so it can only go on one way. This fits that way. It does not fit that way because the distance on the top of the power is different than on the bottom, so it can only go in one direction. One of these is 12 volts, and the Lotharek doesn't use 12 volts, so that is not necessary. From experience in other videos and having tested this properly, I know that the 12 volts does not affect the operation of this unit. Would be nice if it were clearly stated in any manual. I do have the two manuals. You can see I did read them. I did not change any jumpers. They are as they came. I'm not exactly certain what they're for, because one of the things you'll notice is this manual is for the revision C, which has actual jumpers. Now, according to the website, the version F that I have and the version C are 100% compatible, but they are definitely not the same. So that is that. Power is on. We need a tie wrap here. Here's my handy dandy bundle of tie wraps. I have two white ones and a great deal of very large black ones. Is not always the case. Anyway, there is a new tie wrap. It definitely is bigger than what was there. I don't have any minis with me, so this will have to do. An extra 2 tons of holding force isn't going to hurt nothing. Do not kink it. Just snug enough to hold it still. Cut off the excess. Cut off the excess. Now you would never ever know, except for that's a white one and these are yellow from old age, that it was any different. Now the next step is to make the floppy cable connect. Now it used to do this, but that is the wrong direction. It needs to do that. Sorry, that's the same thing. It used to do this, but that's the wrong direction. It needs to do that. Like that. This is the proper way to attach it on mine. Now remember, the Mirage is built so long ago, you can't possibly count on it to be correct. I'm not kinking that at all, just giving it a slight nudge. We do not want it to crease the wires. Ribbon cable is falling down in exactly the same place it was before. There it is. It's just that simple. The installation is done. We are certainly going to make sure it works before we button up the top. In order to do that, you need a perfectly loaded, fully functional Lotharek HxC prepared SD card. Now I have another SD card that I tried, and I did follow all the directions, and it did not work. This is a SanDisk Micro 4 gig card. The card does absolutely work. SanDisk Micro 4 gig card. It absolutely works. It holds data. It works just fine on every Windows machine if you follow all the directions. This card still doesn't function. I don't know why. I did exactly the same thing to this Lexar card. There is a Kingston SD card, which looks similar to my Lexar, and I thought it was the same thing, but it is definitely not. This Lexar SD 512 megabyte SD card works exactly just fine. Now each floppy is 400 kilobytes, and I got, I don't know, 200 of them, so I'm pretty sure it will still fit. I also have a 1 gig card in case I want to change or make backups. Now these were left over. They are full-size SDs. They are not micros. Micro did not work. I don't know exactly why, but this card, which is a micro in an adapter, absolutely did not work. But the card itself is fully functional inside of Windows and Linux. So this card has been loaded per the directions. We have 1 or 2 images on this card. This card, and learning all the preparing processes, took 2 weeks to figure out. I've got 30 years experience as a software engineer. What I can tell you is that it shouldn't be as hard as it is to load these things. But and it is industrial functional. By industrial, it means you must be a highly educated computer professional in order to make it work. There's quite a few people who are getting by on the internet following instructions, but if you're an 18-year-old kid who doesn't know nothing about nothing, high school, you're never going to figure it out. If you are a musician who is technically savvy but not technically trained, you'll never figure it out. You probably have some friends that can work it, but don't expect to get good results quickly. It's a Lexar full-size SD 512 megabyte SD card that has in it at least 5 HFE formatted images. I have, from the pictures you can see, floppy disks that are available. 30 of them, maybe 20, are very important to me, including all the ones from all the other videos you can see on ColecoBrothers YouTube channel. So there it is, it goes right inside the floppy drive. Replacement, just like any other SD card. So we'll wait before we turn it on to put that in so you can see the messages on the screen. So now we have applied power. It is not burning down or blowing up. We're going to see what happens now when I turn on the power button. There it is, ready? See some lights, see a message on the Mirage says no disk. And you see a message on the HxC that says no disk. Website, no SD card found. So let's put the SD card in and see what happens. There it is. It beeps, it found format to HFE, makes some simulated floppy noises. Cycles through the image and boots. That means format disk, so everything is fine. So let's see what this takes from startup to not. With a regular floppy, it was probably 30-40 seconds. So let's start now. 4, 3, 2, 1. The HxC remembers the last image that it had selected. In this case, it's the format2.hfe file. It is still booting. And there we go. That was around 18 seconds. So I say it works. Great. So we'll button up the top, we'll put the Allen screws back on, and our next video will be covering making images that function on a Windows XP based machine. If you like this video and you want to see more, please like or subscribe to the ColecoBrothers YouTube channel. And if you're interested to know what this Mirage used to do in a previous life, you can look at this image that I'm about to put on the screen. There it is, of all these Mirage sample floppies, and do some investigative work using the other videos on the ColecoBrothers YouTube channel to decide what samples are coming out of the Mirage in the song. Here's a hint. There's a song called Throw It Down where every sample came out of the Mirage and it was all played on guitar. Anyway, like or subscribe to the ColecoBrothers YouTube channel for the continuing efforts of making my Mirage work again.